Evening, Brian, you said as you walked past the day shift guard you'd now be taking over from. The man as per usual had his cap lowered to cover most of his face. However, he tapped your shoulder to get your attention before you entered the women's changing room to put on your uniform. Before you do your first round, he said in his typically bored monotone, Freddy has an issue, needs to run some maintenance. You raised an eyebrow. What happened? Chest cavity didn't open at the birthday party today. He grinned. So I needed to use a crowbar to pry that thing open. Parents were disappointed. Wanted half the deposit back. But the kid for some reason absolutely loved it. So according to company policy, they get nothing. You chuckled in response. You like messing with parents way too much, Brian. The man shrugged. It's the little things. Anything else I need to worry about? He shrugged. Well, Chica. He sighed dramatically. She was stuck in the vents, of all places, so she needs a good cleanup. You let out an annoyed grunt. Why didn't you do that? His grin turned cheeky. 'Cause it happened just a few minutes ago, and I was already clocking out for the day. You lightly shoved him before jokingly exclaiming, Fuck you, Brian. He just shrugged smugly. Well, see you around. And with that, he left for the exit. After you switched your private clothes with your uniform, you went to the main stage's elevator. Thank God you were the night guard. You couldn't deal with all those little brats. In a way, you felt sorry for Brian, but maybe his no bullshit attitude was exactly what those 40-year-old soccer moms needed. You smirked as you entered the parts and service maintenance room, and sighed upon seeing the sorry state it was in. Pulling out your trusty work tablet, you ordered 3 janitor bots into parts and services. Of course, a place where mechanical parts were thrown around, dust and oil was inevitable, but broken glass and loose screws went a little too far. Too much of a hazard. The previous night guard Vanessa really didn't do that good of a job, did she? You pulled over a chair at the animatronic maintenance panel and used your tablet to call for your first patient. Chica, report to parts and services. You spoke into the microphone. Before a notification plopped up on screen telling you that she was on her way. When she arrived, you quickly looked her over. Her pristine white shell was covered in cobwebs, dust, and grime. And was that tomato sauce? Did she enter the kitchen again? You really need to stay out of the vents, Chica.
Me and the children were playing hide and seek.
You blinked perplexed. And?
I heard a noise coming from the vents. I thought one of them broke the rules. Bark! And hit there regardless. Bark!
He nodded before simply pushing her inside the protective dome. This will take a while. Do you want me to shut you off or play some music? You said as you returned to the maintenance panel.
Shut me down, dear. Bark, bark!
You nodded, shutting her off, and immediately went to work. The mechanisms inside the protective dome gently removed all pieces of her shell, dropped them off inside a cleaning solution, and then they would be sent outside the dome to you, where you would polish them. Once the process was over, you entered the protective dome and attached each piece to one of the arms, who then would reattach all her parts. Overall, this took over an hour. Please stop crawling into the vents. I mean it. I should have made my first round by now, you said to the chicken animatronic.
Bark! I know, but you always handle us with so much care.
You shrugged. I'm sure the other guards treat you guys well too. Chica shrugged at that. Now, go on. Go back to your room, okay? And no shortcut through the kitchen. Capiche? Chica nodded and then left. Finally you were alone. You sighed heavily before flicking through the cameras on your tablet. Technically, you already were on break. But as you checked the cameras, you smirked. Monty was charging in Monty Golf. Probably didn't reach his room in time of closing. The daycare attendant was hanging up finger paint pictures in his room. And then you sighed heavily. It seemed like one of the staff bots had a wheel come loose in Roxy Raceway. Remembering Freddy had a malfunction too tonight, you decided to call him to the maintenance office while also picking up the bot with him. 20 minutes later, you heard the heavy animatronic footsteps coming from his Rockstar Row tunnel. He really took his sweet time today, didn't he? But you had no time for petty arguments.
Hello there, Night Guard,
He said, and his face plates moved up into a gentle smile. Hey there, big guy, you said, returning his gesture. Had you got a bit of an issue with your plates? Freddy nodded.
It was stuck, and after Brian opened it up, I think a screw broke, so I can also no longer close it properly.
He demonstrated by flopping the loose plate by opening and closing it with 2 fingers. For a moment you just looked at the bare animatronic, thinking first of what would be the cheapest solution, and then what would be the best option to take regardless of that. Meanwhile, Freddy put down the helpless staff bot and went into the protective dome. Okay, you said, following him into it. I can screw the plate shut, which would then make the room behind it inaccessible. Freddy nodded. Oh, I can replace the entire chest plate, but then we still wouldn't know what caused this in the first place.
Could it be my endoskeleton?
You shrugged. I don't know. Let's see. You took his loose plate and lifted it to look inside. Freddy made an uncomfortable noise.
This, feels strange.
You closed the plate to look at him. Do you want me to shut you off? He looked away. Freddy? You grinned. Are you blushing?
I believe I'm unable to blush.
That's a yes. You snickered. What? Never had a girl crawl up inside you? You teased.
I mean, this is not normal, right?
You shrugged. If you don't want to be turned off...
I'd like to remain online, yes.
You snorted.
I feel like this experience may be beneficial for the both of us.
The only thing you could respond was the borderline sassy, mm-hmm, before you once again lifted his chest plate to inspect. Your fingers slid down his endoskeleton, as Freddy continued to make weird noises. Of course, you knew that all the animatronics had been equipped with sensors, so they could properly respond to touches, but that something like this was making them flustered of all things, you didn't know. But then again, you haven't done an operation like this before. In a strange sense, Freddy was right. But when your fingers accidentally nudged one of his fuses, he moaned, followed by you blushing. Freddy? What was that? You spoke loud enough for him to hear.
Please don't do that again.
You bit your lower lip and investigated the fuse. Remembering the manual, this one was supplying his chest cavity with additional electricity. You narrowed your eyes. Hey, this may hurt, you said with a devilish grin.
What?
You took hold of the fuse and pushed it a little further inside. Freddy moaned and groaned as his body convulsed.
What are you doing there, Night Guard?
You bit your lower lip, finding his reaction a little arousing, actually. With your head red like a tomato, you lifted yourself up. Your back ached from leaning over for so long. Freddy had his gaze focused on the dome's glass, desperately trying to not look at you. You alright? He didn't have the heart to tell you that for a moment what you did made all of his servers spring into action. He absolutely loved it. Come on. You did sound like you enjoyed it. He remained quiet. And you shrugged. Without another word, you left the protective dome and sat down at the maintenance panel. Okay, I will now initiate a standard chest plate functionality test. Get ready. Freddy nodded. As you activated the commands, you looked over at him. The plates reacted, as they should. Even the one that had been seemingly broken.
Ah, it works.
Following this, you opened the protective cylinder to let him outside. Alright, time for my patrol. Freddy, however, tapped one of his toes on the ground.
May I accompany you?
You shrugged. Yeah, sure. Why not? As the two of you quietly marched through the mega pizzaplex, you noticed how close he was walking behind you, like a needy cat desperate for a treat. You stopped and pretended to check the area with your flashlight before nonchalantly asking, Hey, by the way, you started. Why are you so close behind me? Freddy blinked. Honestly, he wasn't sure. You smirked and looked at him while putting both hands on your hips.
I'm not quite sure.
Well, the last time a guy was walking behind me like a puppy, he wanted my attention. Freddy scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. You motioned to continue. You guys have a really good AI in there, don't you? You said as you walked.
I am programmed with over 10,000 responses to the word hello alone.
I was thinking more about that little thing you did earlier. You nudged his chest plate. Freddy made a noise of discomfort.
Well, what you did there led to a temporary overload of my systems, but it didn't hurt like when a taser is used. I assume because of the electricity required for pain is much higher.
You smiled softly. So what happened down there was essentially a weird programming error.
That led to me feeling a certain sort of way, yes.
You liked it, admit it.
I did? But I don't understand why.
You sighed and pointed at a table. By now, you had reached the Bunny Bowl Diner. Come on, sit. This requires some theory crafting. You sat down on a chair while he pulled over another table to sit on, as he wouldn't fit otherwise. I read your manual, and I would call it an unintended programming kink.
Do you really have to use the word kink here?
Well, it fits, doesn't it? You're programmed to feel touches, and you're programmed to feel pain. This allows you to react accordingly should a customer be in a similar situation. In other words, to feel empathy, or something in that direction. Freddy nodded. So, is it really so hard to believe that the right touches feel like pleasure? Freddy shivered.
This is really not chat-friendly. I should not be able to feel pleasure being touched like that.
You snorted. Just wait until the internet hears about this. Freddy put a hand in front of his face.
Oh dear. If the internet finds out about it, Roxanne would never be able to perform normally. Please don't tell anyone about this.
You laughed. I find it cute how you immediately thought of Roxy.
How could I not? Have you seen the type of customers who gather around her room in Rockstar Row? And I'm not talking about rebellious 10-year-olds who like her punk rock attitude.
You played around with your hair,
Please don't tell anyone.
he urged. I mean, it is a kink I'd like to keep to myself. He shook in surprise at your words. You leaned on the table. Okay, Freddy, I'll keep it to myself. If you let me, blow your fuse every once in a while.
Night Guard!
Freddy exclaimed. What? I like you, you clearly like me, and you definitely like what I did. It's fine. And I'd like to do it again sometime soon. He looked down at the floor.
Fine. Deal.
He looked to the side for a moment before asking,
So, like, now, or later, or...
Well, Freddy, aren't you a little baby? You got up and walked over to him, pressing your lips against his cheek. It felt weird kissing plastic. It didn't give any resistance and was cold, but it seemed to get the intended effect on Freddy.
That's a yes, right?